Hi bead friends, I'm back with a new tutorial. We will continue our adventure in the Miyuki world by creating this new bracelet that I've named Coco Chanel for the great stylist. It was inspired by her combination of black and white, for which she was famous for, and she used to wear lots of sparkly things. So this bracelet is made using herringbone stitch, and it's a project that's perfect for beginners, even for complete beginners that have never made anything with Miyuki. And I've used Swarovski crystals to make it. So let's get to the materials that you will need for today's project. You will need fireline thread, size 0.006 inches in crystal. Then you will need size 10 needles, a bead mat to work on, some pliers to attach your clasp on, a clasp. I will be using 2 jump rings open, a chain, and then a clasp. Then you will need size 11 millimeters Miyuki round beads. You will need 3 grams of this. That will be enough for all of the bracelet. In today's project, I will actually be using size 11 beads to put in between the beads. But for the rest, if you're using size 11, 3 grams is more than enough for the whole of the bracelet. Then you will need size 4 millimeters bicones in 4 colors, and you will need 56 pieces in each color of bicone. Then you will need bicones in size 3 millimeters, so smaller, and you will need in that case 60 pieces for the bracelet. So 4 colors of bicones in 4 millimeters, 56 pieces. 1 color of bicones in 3 millimeters, 60 pieces, and 3 grams of Miyuki round beads, a size 11. You will also need scissors, and other than the clasp, the pliers. Cut about a yard of thread and thread your needle. I will be using bigger beads to show you better the project that I will be using, and then I'll be doing my example also in normal size beads, but for today I'll start with the large beads so it's easier for you to see. So thread on your needle 2 beads and have them go on the end of your thread. Leave about, I'd say, a foot, more or less 15 centimeters at the end of your thread, and thread back through the first bead from where your tail thread is coming out and pull, so that the bead will go one next to the other. We're actually using ladder stitch for the beginning of our project. Then we go back. You can see that my thread is coming down from down under the bead. So we go back through the second bead from the bottom to the top. I'm going counterclockwise because I'm left-handed. So if you're right-handed, you'll probably be going clockwise. So just take that into note if you're looking with me. I'm passing back through these beads and back once again through the second one to reinforce the stitch before I add on a new bead. Okay, now I'm ready. Once I have my thread coming out the second bead, I add 1 bead and I go back through the whole of the second from where the thread is not coming out. So since my thread is coming out from the top, I go in through the bottom, pull tightly, and then I will have to reinforce this stitch by going back through the bead that I've just added, and then again through the second bead, and then once again through the third bead. So I continue going round and round until I come out of the third bead, the last one that I've just added, and then I'll add another one again in the same way. Ladder stitch is all the same. You just keep adding 1 bead at a time and reinforcing the stitch that you've done before going ahead and adding a new stitch. Here you go. So right now I have 4 beads in total. For the the basis of our project, we will need 8 beads stitched at ladder stitch. So add 4 more beads and I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I've stitched 8 beads in total. This is my basis. Now we'll start working with the herringbone stitch, which is the actual stitch that we will use to work. I will be switching the color so that my work is clearer, but you will stick to the same color of beads. So I will start by adding 2 beads. So herringbone stitch is done by adding 2 beads at a time at the thread. And then my thread is coming out from the top, from the first bead. So I'll go back through the second bead from the top to the bottom. And you can see how my beads have already started in that herringbone stitch, kind of fish stitch. Then I have to go through my third bead without adding anything to come back on top of my project. There you go. I add 2 more beads to my thread and go back through the fourth bead. Then I go back through the fifth bead without adding anything. Add 2 beads to the thread and go back through the sixth bead. Then I go back through the seventh bead without adding anything. 2 beads to the thread and go back through the eighth bead. So I finished my first row and herringbone. I will have added 4 stitches in total, so it's 4 pairs of beads. And now, important, I've come to the end of my rope, to the end of my row, sorry. I will turn around the work in my hand so that I start once again from the left going to the right, because I'm left-handed again. So you'll probably do the opposite in direction-wise. But it's easier if I continue working in the same direction of my thread. So starting from where my needle is in my hand and going away. And now to start a new thread, the first thing that I'll have to do is actually add a single bead and pass through the first bead that I find in the last stitch I've done. Here you go. The bead is needed to cover the thread, to cover this turnaround in the thread. Now we're ready for a new row. So I'll add 2 beads. I'm switching again colors so that it's clear the work I'm doing. You will be using only one color, so 2 beads, and I'll step through the second bead of the third stitch so that each stitch is next to each other. And then I'll go through the first bead of the next stitch, reversing the direction of my thread without adding anything. So the second row is needed both to add a new row of bead, and with this row we will also be stitching together the stitches of the previous round. So I'll add another 2 stitches, 2 beads, I'm sorry, and I'll pass through the second bead of the second stitch, and then I'll turn around and go through the first bead of the third stitch without adding anything. Get 2 more new beads, and once again turn around and go through the second bead of the second stitch, and then I switch around and go through. Then I add 2 more, and I go through the 8th bead of the last stitch. So I finished this row as well. And again, at the end of each row, I'll need to do the single bead for the side. So I'll add a white bead and go back through the last bead of my stitch. And then I turn around and I'll need to add a new row. I'll show you how to add the new row, which will be the third one. I'm switching again colors. 2 beads through the second bead of the first stitch. There you are. And then I go through the first bead of the second stitch. Then I take another 2 beads, go through the second bead of the second stitch, Now, as you can see here. And then I go through the first bead of the third stitch. It's important tension, so pull tightly so that your work is nice and firm. Add 2 more beads and go through the second bead of the third stitch. Then turn around in the first bead of the last stitch. 2 beads. Go through. And then I'll add the single bead on the side. Ready to do a new row. So in total we've added 3 rows in herringbone plus the ladder stitch row. You will need to make in total 6 rows of herringbone stitch. So we've made 3, add 3 more and I'll see you in a bit. So I've added the 3 rows. In total there's 6 plus the base and ladder stitch. And as you can see, to know if you've made the right number of rows, especially if you have just one color and you have smaller beads, so it's more difficult to see correctly, it's going to be easier for you to count the beads on the side. You will have to have 3 beads on one side and 3 beads on the other side. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If you have those 6 beads, 3 and 3, then you will have added 6 rows in total. And the last row you will have added coming out of the 6th row that you've just added. This is the moment where you'll have to stop. This is the first part of your bracelet done. Now I'll show you how to close the thread, because you'll need to close off your thread right now and do another of these endings in herringbone exactly the same as the first one. So first I'll show you how to close the thread. So I'll pass back through this row because the thread, usually I like closing it off on the side. So I'll go back through all of my stitches to come out on the other side of this row. This will also be good because I'm passing through all of the beads to stitch them together. Okay, so now I'm on the side. I'm gonna go down 2 beads, 2 rows, still on the last bead of the stitch, so that I fall right next to the 2 beads that are next to each other with the side. I'm sorry, my thread just came up, so be careful not to get it caught anywhere. Okay, so I want to close my thread, passing with my needle under the thread that passes between the side bead and the bead from which I'm coming out. The thread forms a loop. I go through the loop with my needle and I pull tightly so that I'm making a knot on the thread that passes between these 2 beads. And then I go back through the side bead and then up through the other 2 beads to go back through on top. I like closing the thread on this particular point in the herringbone because it's easy to get access to the thread and not ruin my work. Then I'm going to do another knot, this time between the 2 beads of this stitch. So I go under the stitch, through the loop with the needle, and then I pull, and my needle has to fall in between these 2 beads. I pass back through a few of the beads. I usually prefer going down instead of horizontally this time so that my thread is better cut up. And then I'm gonna cut it off. So I cut off by pulling it, keeping it tight while I cut with my threads. There you go. So my working thread is done. Now I'll show you how to close off your ending, more as to make the loop on this side of the bracelet. So we want to do this, how to attach the clasp to this side of the bracelet before we go on to add the crystals. So I've actually switched my needle to my tail thread. Now my thread is coming out from the first bead. Now we want to move, just using the beads on the ladder stitch row, back and forth without adding anything, to come out of the 4th bead on the ladder stitch. There you go. Now we can add 5 beads to our thread all together. And then I'll add my jump ring, especially if you're adding a chain. It's easier if you want to attach it directly, or otherwise you will find jump rings in the kit and then you can add it later on. Go back through just the 5th bead of the ladder stitch so that you see that the beads form a loop. And then you're going to pass through again the 4th bead in the ladder stitch, because you're going back through all the beads that you've just added to reinforce this loop of beads that you've made to attach your clasp. Once you've gone all around and secured that loop, then you can move to the 6th bead on the ladder stitch, again without adding anything. We're just moving the thread in position. And now we're going to close off this thread with 2 knots, just like the ones that we've used before. And I'll probably use the thread that passes between the 6th and the 7th bead on this ladder stitch. I get a loop, go back through the loop, pull, and then I'll go a few beads over, come out, and cut my thread. There you go. Now make another one of these rows of 6 herringbone, exactly the same, so that we have the 2 halves of the bracelets on which we will add the crystals. So make another one exactly the same with the loop, with the tail thread and everything just finished off, so that I can show you how to add the crystals. I'll see you in a bit. Finish the 2 endings, and now I'll show you how to put them together with adding the 4 rows of crystals. I will show you once again in the bigger size. So I have my bicone size 4 millimeters, the bigger ones, which are green in my example. Then I have my bicone size 3 millimeters, which in my example are hot pink. And then I have some size 11 round, size 11 Miyuki beads. I have ended on with my working thread from the first stitch in the last bead of the last stitch on this side after I've added my side bead. So exactly how you will have ended with yours. If your thread is at least long 30 centimeters, then you can use it to add the first string of a thread. Otherwise, you will need to add a new thread. And I'll show you as soon as I've finished mine how to add a new thread, because it will probably come necessary at a certain point in your bracelet. So I'll show you what you have to add to your thread. So add a size 3 millimeters, a Miyuki bead, a size 4 millimeters, again a Miyuki bead, a size. So these 4 beads are the units that you will have to add for 14 times, because you will have to add in total 14 bicones size 4 millimeters. So go ahead and add these 4, the sequence of these 4 these 4 beads for another 13 times. I've added actually just 3 units total of the 4 beads, because I'm not going to add all of the beads that you're actually going to be adding. But once you've added all 14 of your bicones 4 millimeters together with the rest of the beads, you will end with 1 size 11 bead. You'll have to add an extra crystal size 3 millimeters to your row of beads. I'll show you better with the smaller beads, and then go through the 8th bead of the first stitch, so that it's exactly starting off with the 8th bead and going through the 8th. So I went through the 8th bead, which is exactly the same one from which I started off, and now I have to go back through this thread of crystals to reinforce the whole work. And we want to attach it to the 2nd bead of the stitch. So this one, let me pick it up and show you closer. So we want to like have our needle come out this way so that I can go back through all the crystals. But I can't do it directly, otherwise my thread will be seen. So on this side, I will need to first go through all the beads of this last stitch until I come out of the ladder stitch, like this. You see that my needle is going through all of these beads. And then I go back through all of the beads of the second column of the herringbone to come out the second bead of the first stitch right next to the one that I started off. Now my thread is in the right direction and I can go back through all of the beads that I've used to put on this thread. Be careful to follow the order of the beads on the thread and not skip any to not make any mistakes. Check your work as you're going along. It's going to be harder when you're using smaller beads than mine. And now, as you can see, once I'm on the other side of the bracelet, this time I can pass easily through the second bead of the first stitch without needing to turn around. And then again, I can turn around the thread without going to the base, but I can simply turn around and come out of the third bead of the row like this. Because on one side of the bracelet, the turnaround will be easy and you'll be able to add your Swarovski directly. Whereas when you're actually passing back through your threads of crystal, you'll need to go back through the base first to be able to turn around your thread. So add a second thread exactly like the first. So start with your 3mm bicones, size 11 bead, size 4mm bicone, and another size 11 bead. The strings are all the same. You will be changing the color of the 4mm bicones, whereas the beads and the bicones of 3mm will be the same for all 4 threads. Add the same number of beads as the first thread, changing just the color of the bicone size 4, and I'll see you in a bit. Added exactly the same type of beads that I've added to the first. In my case, I'm not even changing the color of bicones because it's not necessary for my example. You will have to change it so that you give the right design to the bracelet. I go back through the third bead of the last row, and again, I'm not in the position on this side to go back directly through this fourth bead, so I'll have to climb up this column of beads to come out of the base. Make sure to get all of the beads that compose this column, and then you'll need to go around. Now my thread is really short, so I won't be able to go back and back through the row of crystals. I'll need to change and close my thread. So what I'll do is I'll close off the thread just like you've learned in the previous steps of this tutorial. So I'm at the base, I close it off with a thread, then I move around and do another thread. I won't show you that because you've seen it already. But right now I'll show you instead how to add a thread. Cut a new thread, and now normally I would leave the finished thread in the point so I know where to start off, but this one is pretty easy. I want to come out on this side within this bead, so I'll attach my thread by adding the thread to the base, which is an easy part where to add the thread for the herringbone. I'll leave just about 10 centimeters of tail thread because I just want to pass it through in the beads before cutting it off. So I won't be needing to make a knot because I'm already making it right now. And as you can see, I'm pulling both sides of the thread tight and I'm making a double knot. And then I'll simply move along the beads to come out the fourth thread. So I'm in the second, third, just moving along this space to come out on the fourth. And now I'm coming out all of the beads of this column to turn around my thread and be ready to pass back through all the crystals. Again, remember, you want to pick up all the beads in the correct order so that you reinforce this thread, because the Swarovski crystals can be slightly, can cut the thread if it's not secured enough, because they can be sharp. So just go back through. And then again on this side, I don't have a problem. I go through the fourth one naturally without any hitch. And then I can just turn around and go through the fifth bead without needing to use the base to turn around my thread. And I'm ready to add the third thread. Again, I will start with a 3mm bicone, a bead, 4mm bicone, another bead. As such, let me show you. Here they are. There's 4 units that get repeated. Remember to change out the color of the bicones, but you'll find them in your kits. And I'll see you in a bit. So we're going to add the third row of crystals. I'm going to go through the first bead of the third stitch, which is the 5th of the last row. And then once again on this side, I won't be able to switch around directly, but I have to go up through this column of beads to come out of the base. Make sure to get all of the beads of the row. Just getting there. And then I'll flip around and get all of the beads of the row next to it, which is the 6th. And now I can go back through all the crystals. To come out on the other side, I go through the 6th bead on the other side, and you can see how here it's automatic. And then I can switch around on this side because it's one side is hard and I need to turn around and the other one is simple. So I'm ready for the last set. Again, it's bicone 4mm, 3mm, sorry, bead, 4mm bicone, bead. And it's these 4 beads repeated for 15 times. And then to attach the 4th bead and last thread of crystals, I go through the 7th bead. Once again on this side, it's not automatic, so I have to go up, up, up to come out of the base. There you go. And then I switch around and go back through the 8th bead to come out on the last one. So that each string of Swarovski is centered on one stitch of herringbone. If I wanted to add more strings of Swarovski, I could do that easily by simply adding a stitch of herringbone when I'm making the bases. So instead of 8 beads, I could do 10, I could do 12, and then that each extra pair of beads adds an extra string of Swarovski. So you can make it as high or as low as you want. And then I go back through down, and I'll need a loop on this side if I haven't made it already. I won't be doing that because I've showed you already how to do it. There it is, all 4. I want to show it on the smaller size. I didn't actually show you the smaller size at all today because it's just so hard, but I wanted to show you this sample because as you can see, I'll get right close to it. Each string is centered on the stitch. And in this case, I've used 4mm bicones for the Swarovski. And instead of the 3mm, I actually use size 8 beads. And it makes maybe a clearer finish, let's say. And I just couldn't find a 5th color that I wanted to pair with this color combination, so I thought it would be fun to try out the 8th. I just like to switch it up a lot once I'm doing a project and I get to like the 5th or 6th sample that I'm making. I just like to make it fun by changing up the materials to see how it would come out. So in this case, I used 8. And once I used 8, I noticed that it was actually too short. I didn't get the same length that I wanted on my sample. So what I did is I simply added an extra crystal. So this is actually long 15 bicones, size 4, but there are no 3 millimeters. And that was possible. Whereas in the sample that I made inspired to Coco Chanel in black and white, here I used, actually I didn't use Swarovski, I used the 4 millimeter briolets in half crystals, and it fixes also like this. I wanted to try it out with the briolets because we have a lot of colors in this kind of half crystals that Swarovski doesn't make, so it can be fun to also like mix them or just use those colors. So I wanted to see if it was doable, and it is. Okay, so we finished our bracelet, and now I'm going to show you how to add the clasp, since this is a tutorial for real beginners, complete beginners. So I'm going to take a jump ring, and the jump ring will be open. I'm going to take it in between the pliers, the flat pliers, with the opening on the top, if you can see it. And then I'm going to take my other round pliers. The round pliers keep just the jump ring in between, whereas now the flat pliers will move and open the jump ring this way. So the jump ring is round. I don't open it like this, but I open it like this so that it keeps the round shape. It's very important. Once I've opened the jump ring, I get one of the loops of beads that I've made on each side of the bracelet, pass it through, and then I get the other half of the loop of the clasp. So in this case, the lobster clasp, put it on, and then again I take the two ends of the jump ring in between my pliers, and I go back with the flat plier to make the two ends meet. If I have a bit of space in between, you can see that my nail can fit in here, then I'll keep everything steady, and with both sets of pliers of the flat one, I'll squish it together on both sides. Now this is a question of not strength, but control and precision. So you'll get it with time. Don't squish too hard, or you'll ruin your jump ring, or you might even break bead. But it's important that this jump ring is closed correctly so that you don't lose your clasp, or heaven forbid, your bracelet while you're wearing it. There you go. So now that's done. And I'll do the same thing on the other side, with the other jump ring. So once again, I'll show you. Here, I can't find easily the opening, so I'm just trying, and here it is. It was actually not on top as I thought. Open it. There's no need to open it all the way. You just have to be able to get the beads through. And then on this side, I'll add a chain. I've been adding chains to these bracelets because the length of bracelet needed for a woman varies a lot. In centimeters, it varies between 15 centimeters for really small wrists to even 21. I've made bracelets 21 centimeters. So it's easier using a chain, so that I'm sure that even if you buy the kit, it will fit you, because the bracelet finished measures 17 centimeters with the clasp, with the lobster clasp counting. So this way it is an average length of the bracelet, and then with the chain you can actually regulate it to how you want to wear it. Okay. And that's the end of our tutorial for today, beady friends. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you liked it, please click the like button below. It helps me understand what kind of tutorials to present to you. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel by clicking the bell so that you get notified every time I post a new tutorial or video. If you have questions or comments, please leave them in the section below, and I'll happily answer any questions. And I always like feedback, so it helps me. Thanks so much. Also, you can find the kits for the bracelets on our site, which is www.happybead.it. You will find the kits in 6 colors. So the first one is the pink with the gray accents and all the shades of pink and purple. Then I've done a version for thinking of the warmer, thinking about the autumn. So it's more of warm colors such as olive and topaz. And then the one that we've just finished together, which is in the colors of the sun. It's nice and warm, and I think it's perfect for the summer, in reds. And then you'll have the cocoa version in black with the half crystals, so the price will probably be much lower. And then you'll have the sea breeze version with all the colors of the sea and of summer, with this new sea foam color that is just new, come from Swarovski, and I love it. So I could not use it. And then there's the version in the greens with the yellow accents using the new color of Miyuki round beads and the round pearls of Swarovski. So these are crystals. They're again 4 millimeters are the rounds, and for the 3 millimeters I use the bicones. So I wanted to try out the round ones and see if they worked out, and they do beautifully. So you'll find all the kits. Remember that in our kits, the thread and the needles are not included, so that if you have them already, you're not buying them again. If you actually need them, make sure to buy them together with the kit by selecting them under the kits. You'll find them available for you. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Until next time, enjoy and take care. Thank you.